This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
At least 200 people are feared dead or injured after a NATO-led airstrike in southern Afghanistan.
A spokesman for the coalition says the airstrike was aimed at a meeting of Taliban commanders, but local sources are reporting that civilians are among the dead and injured. The attack happened in the southern province of Helmand, which has become the heartland of Taliban resistance.
Well, our correspondent in Kabul, Dan Nolan, told me earlier there are conflicting reports on the actual number of casualties in the airstrike.
Well, the only information we have on it was a statement released by the US-led coalition forces last night. In that statement, they claimed they led a precision airstrike yesterday afternoon in Helmand province, targeting two top-level Taliban commanders. Now, in that statement, they said they ensured there were no innocent Afghans in the area before conducting it, but the information we're getting from on the ground is that there were a large number of casualties there, over 200 people from around 3 or 4 different sources, and each of those sources say there was a high number of civilians among those casualties.
But how difficult is it to get an accurate picture of how many civilian casualties there were?
It is extremely difficult, actually, because this is a remote part of Helmand province, and getting any sort of accurate figures from the ground is difficult. But at the moment, we're relying on a member of parliament from Helmand province who says that there were over 200 casualties, and in her opinion, the majority of them were civilians. The police in that part of Afghanistan have also said that there were 200 casualties, but they claim there were 150 Taliban fighters among them, which still leaves 50 civilian casualties in their opinion.
A world of differences between yesterday and today. Baghdad takes a glimpse at the past and another at the future in a magical moment that perhaps only the residents of the land of the two rivers who have gathered here today in remembrance of the old days can sympathize with. Once upon a time, their city was full of life, day and night. Life has been suppressed and the streets and cafes deserted as fear has crawled into the hearts of the city's residents.
Every time Baghdad remembers its past, it condemns its present. But the city never gives in to despair and believes that ultimately, happiness is its inevitable fate. Today, Baghdad stands alone, deserted, guarded by the daggers of the occupiers, and packed with booby-trapped vehicles. Its citizens have become both victims and witnesses. They've lost their sense of security, and some have sacrificed their lives in this magical city that once, not too long ago, was full of life and creativity. Baghdad is no longer that city.
Baghdad was open to the entire world, to all Western and Arab visitors. Today, you must think 100 times before you commute from one area to the other.
Death has become the unstoppable enemy, waiting in every corner, witnessing heinous varieties of violence in the city of Rashid. The Tigris River, which gave inspiration to many Iraqi poets, from Sayyab to Rusafi and many others, has become a dumpster for unidentified bodies, while its historical and majestic bridges have been bombarded. Even Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, the founder of Baghdad, whose statue continued to protect the city for years and years after his death, was demolished when they decided that he wasn't neutral enough in his position. The objective was to turn everything into rubble, including the memories of the masses.
They've erased Baghdad's true characteristics, which were full of love and beauty and dear to the hearts of many.
Those who ride the wave do not fear drowning, and those who love creating life are not shaken by turbulence. This is the story of Baghdad, a story written in the book of history and illustrated with hardships and crossroads. Hope, however, will shine at the end, and the city of Rashid will survive.
Today marks the anniversary of the occupation of Kuwait. Iraqi citizens told Al-Iraqiya that the Kuwait War is what pushed Iraq into a series of catastrophic wars.
On August 2nd, 17 years ago, the past Iraqi regime committed the heinous crime of invading Kuwait, one of many committed against the neighboring country, which resulted in the end of all ties between the two. After the fall of the Iraqi regime in 2003, the new reality on the ground made it possible to restore political relations between the two countries to their previous status. Kuwait was invited to take an active role in helping the Iraqi people during these difficult times and to work on understanding and building bridges to improve its relationship with the new Iraq, thus providing security and stability for the two neighboring nations. Even though some unresolved matters remain from Saddam's invasion of Kuwait, such as the ongoing issue of missing corpses of hostages that were kidnapped during the war, there is much hope in the positive correspondence that Iraq has been sporadically sending to Kuwait. These messages provide assurance and show signs of serious and good intentions to end all unresolved conflicts on both sides. Meanwhile, senior Iraqi officials have reiterated that their country fully acknowledges the legitimacy of Kuwait and its sovereignty, thus putting an end once and for all to the border issue. In addition, mutual visits between officials from both countries have further strengthened these positive ties. Al-Iraqiya.
Israeli troops killed a military leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad movement in the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. Israeli sources said a special force pushed into the city and shot dead Ra'id Abu al-Adas, a leader of Al-Quds Brigades, at the old sector of the city. Another member of the movement was arrested and a third Palestinian was shot and wounded in the area. In other developments, Israeli forces moved into southern Gaza, occupying the previous Gaza airport. Those forces carried house-to-house searches in the nearby areas. On the other hand, Israeli military sources said Palestinian activists fired 3 rockets into southern Israel. The sources added that 2 rockets landed in the Israeli town of Sderot, while the third at an agricultural area nearby, wounding 1 person and causing material damage. The Islamic Jihad group claimed responsibility for the rocket attacks. Meanwhile, Israeli security forces set up roadblocks and launched a manhunt in the south of the country in an attempt to try to find 2 Palestinians suspected of infiltrating from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. The identity of the 2 men was not immediately known, but local media quoted security sources as saying the men did not appear to be planning an attack, but might be looking for work. The search had expanded to an area north of Sderot, which is close to the Gaza border. The center for the search was around the town of Jazeera, near the port city of Ashdod. Israeli troops constantly patrol the heavily fortified border of the besieged Gaza Strip. In Iraq, the U.S. military said 4 of its soldiers were killed in the capital, underlining U.S. President George W. Bush's grim prediction of a very difficult August for U.S. troops in the country. The military said a roadside bomb killed 3 soldiers and wounded 11 others on patrol in eastern Baghdad during operations targeting militants, while the 4th soldier died in combat in western Baghdad. In other violence, gunmen in the southern city of Najaf killed an imam with links to the reclusive spiritual leader Grand Ayatollah Ali as-Sistani in a drive-by shooting. Meanwhile, in the northern city of Kirkuk, relatives mourned the deaths of 5 brothers who were kidnapped and killed after their desperately poor family was unable to pay a $100,000 ransom. And to Afghanistan, the South Korean government told the Taliban there are limits to its ability to meet the demands of kidnappers holding 21 people hostage. Taliban guerrillas who kidnapped a group of South Korean volunteer workers in Afghanistan have already killed 2 and are threatening to kill the rest if their demands for the release of prisoners are not met. Meanwhile, Afghan doctors arrived in Ghazni to ask for Taliban's permission to treat Korean hostages. We get more in this Reuters report.
The family of the second South Korean hostage killed by Taliban kidnappers in Afghanistan visits a shrine set up in his memory. 29-year-old Shin Seong-min's body was found days after the leader of the 23 hostages was shot and killed. Relatives of the remaining hostages have sent their own emotional message to the kidnappers.
We've already lost 2 people. We beg you, please return the remaining 21 hostages.
South Korea's government, facing increasing protests by anti-war campaigners demanding the withdrawal of its troops from Afghanistan, is warning the insurgents there are limits to what it can do to end the stalemate. Seoul is appealing for what it's called flexibility, a comment analysts say is directed at the United States to sway the Afghan government towards a deal with the kidnappers who want the release of imprisoned insurgents. A special envoy sent to Afghanistan to push for a resolution has just returned.
I met Afghanistan's president, national security advisor, and defense minister several times, and they've agreed to do their best for the prompt release of our fellow citizens.
Meanwhile, a team of Afghan doctors has arrived in Ghazni province to treat some of the hostages whose health has suffered in captivity. Taliban officials say 2 of the women hostages are seriously ill and could die.
A subsidiary of the European Aerospace and Defence Group, EADS, said that an arms deal with Libya is almost complete. This deal marks Libya's first arms agreement with a Western country since the lifting of the international arms embargo in 2004. French Defence Minister Hervé Morin confirmed that Libya had made a declaration of its intention to buy Milan-type missiles and radio systems. According to a Libyan source, a deal worth more than $400 million was signed.
While the Bulgarian nurses who had been sentenced to death were being released, it seems that another deal was being negotiated between France and Libya. A long series of Libyan and French negotiations over a number of military and civilian deals took place before the release of the Bulgarian nurses. These deals will restore French and Libyan relations to their golden age before Jean Mitterrand took office in 1981. The news broke when French Defense Minister Hervé Miron confirmed that Libya had made a declaration of its intention to buy 160 million euros worth of Milan-type missiles, in addition to another 130 million euros to buy radio systems from the European Aerospace and Defense Group, EADS. These are the first arms deals between Libya and a Western country since the lifting of the international embargo in 2004. Negotiations over a deal to update 133 F-1 warplanes, which Libya had bought before the embargo, have also reached their final stage. The French are trying to secure a large part of Libya's future military deals, estimated around $20 billion. Tripoli disclosed its intentions to purchase Rafale and Tiger French warplanes, which require the approval of joint ministerial committees. It seems that the French are trying to make up for the lost time during which they could not access the Libyan military market, especially since the lifting of the international sanctions 2 years ago.
After Rice met with a number of Palestinian officials in her latest visit to the region, the Palestinian people and leaders voiced concerns about the risks of being taken advantage of due to the internal divisions among them.
أنهت وزيرة الخارجية الأمريكية كونداليزا رئيس جولتها في
American Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice ended her trip to the region with a visit to Ramallah, where she signed an $80 million security aid package with the Palestinian Authority. The money will be used to strengthen the Palestinian security agencies. Rice met with Salim Fayyad in private and attended part of his government's meeting before meeting with President Mahmoud Abbas. Hamas attacked Rice's visit and meetings with Fatah officials and said that it deepened divisions among the Palestinians.
The results of Rice's visit to Palestine have confirmed what we've been saying. The American administration is not serious about its promise to establish a Palestinian state in any form. Rice's discussions with the occupation and leaders from the Palestinian Authority show that there are sharp differences. The American administration will only bring the Palestinian people more death, provocation, and deeper internal divisions.
Palestinian officials said that Rice's visit under the current circumstances poses great risks to the region, not to mention that the American administration is looking for ways to cover up its failures and improve its image internally.
I think that Rice's visit poses a danger to the region because the American administration rejects any dialogue between Fatah and Hamas. This American position intends to keep the Palestinians very divided, which reflects the American policy in the region. The U.S. wants to keep the region in a constant state of war. The American strategy aims at keeping the Palestinians and Arabs divided. The Americans promised they would provide $80 million to the Palestinian Authority 5 or 6 months ago. This promise is very dangerous, and it does not even serve the interests of the Palestinian Authority.
Ordinary
Palestinians do not build high hopes on the new promises and talks about peace, which have been repeated for decades without any tangible results. The Palestinian people do not have confidence in American promises and believe that they were made to serve Israel's interests.
What can one expect from the enemy? Has there ever been an enemy who gave anything to his adversary?
We can't build high hopes that the Americans will give us aid and provide us with ways to achieve peace. I do not think this will happen.
A just and comprehensive peace is the key solution to all outstanding crises in the region. But what kind of peace can ever materialize if the Palestinian territories and other areas in the region are divided? Yusuf Al-Muhammad, Syrian Arab Television, Occupied Palestine.
يوسف المحمود التلفزيون العربي السوري فلسطين المحتلة.
President Ahmadinejad Friday called the U.S. weapons deal an old trick to create division in the region. The president made the remark in a meeting with a group of Algerian journalists prior to his Monday Algeria visit, adding Iran is not worried about the package because it has brotherly relations with the region. On Iraq, the president said Iran considers it as its humanitarian duty to contribute to Iraq's security and independence. He voiced concern over growing unrest and violation of civil rights in Iraq and held the occupiers responsible for the chaos. He continued Iran is strongly against terrorism in any part of the world. Ahmadinejad then called for an all-out campaign worldwide against the phenomenon. On the Iran-China-Russia close cooperation, he said Tehran's core policy is having good ties with all and that the ties serve peace and security of all people worldwide. Greece is willing to transfer Iran's gas to Europe. Iranian and Greek officials have entered talks on a project to establish a pipeline to transfer Iran's gas to Europe. At the meeting, Greek Development Minister Dimitris Sofos has expressed optimism that Europe would import Iran's gas from the Greek territory. This while Washington has stepped up pressure on Western energy companies not to cooperate with the Iranian energy sector.
Meanwhile, a group of frustrated Israelis fired back towards northern Gaza. But they weren't using rockets or bombs. They were using tomatoes. IBA's Ellie Wogelanter explains.
You can call it the new culinary conflict. Whatever you call it, what you see here are Tel Aviv residents bombing Gaza. But their artillery doesn't come from the IDF, it comes from the kitchen. A mixed salad salvo of tomatoes, eggs, cucumbers, mangoes, and even corn on the cob.
Everything which is homemade. The same like the Palestinian is doing the Qassam, but we are doing on the funny side of the thing.
This is great. This is really the first corn that has ever gone over the border. So I give you guys mad props.
Yigal Tsur is behind the food fight. He says people are fed up with the constant rocket attacks fired at Beirut by terrorists in northern Gaza, and he thought this might be a novel way to call the public's attention to the situation.
The dialogue is stuck. There's no really dialogue between us, the Israelis, toward the Palestinian side. We have only the Qassam, which are shot from the Palestinian side. So basically we decided to try, and we will succeed, to do kind of shake the situation. And for this, we are going to use freedom eggs, we are going to use tomatoes.
So Tsur and his friends from the Sderot Support Committee drove down from Tel Aviv to the Gaza border yesterday with crates of eggs and vegetables bought naturally in Sderot. They then constructed their own homemade launchers from piping, filled it with flammable liquid, and fired away at Beit Hanun, trying to egg on the residents there.
I think you guys are crazy, but what the heck? I want to try to.
I just want to give you an explanation. This is the Palestinian over the border. And Bet Hanun is just in front of us. Okay.
On a count of 3, 2, 1.
When the army heard about shooting at Gaza, an IDF unit was rushed to the launch site to investigate. But when it was explained to them that it was nothing more than tomato tossing, they let them continue. Tsur said he is now working on a bigger and better launcher that he hopes will allow him to lob whole cabbages at Gaza. Ellie Wogelanter, IBA News.
2, 1, es!
The phenomenon of honor killings is spreading throughout the Arab world. Every year, many women are victimized by it. Despite activities aimed at raising awareness about this phenomenon, it continues to spread and laws no longer serve as a deterrent. Rather, sometimes the laws are lenient towards the perpetrators of these crimes.
More than 5,000 young girls and women throughout the world are killed annually under the banner of honor crimes. They are perpetrated with impunity by men against female relatives as a punishment for committing moral transgressions, which taints the honor of the family. This phenomenon is spreading in the Arab and Islamic worlds. It recently spread to the Western world as well. Immigrants who carried with them their tribal and social traditions to the West committed these crimes. The dangers of this phenomenon are not limited to the large number of victims. What's also troubling is the fact that most of these victims are innocent, and their innocence is proven after it is too late. This phenomenon brings together two contradictory ideas, honor and crimes. Most of the time, women are the victims, even if only based on doubts and suspicions. The reason behind it is culture, which views the male members of the household as the ones who decide the fate of the female relatives. The numbers of women who have been killed vary from one nation to the other. In Jordan, at least 25 women are killed annually. In Pakistan, hundreds of women are killed annually. These crimes are committed with impunity. In Lebanon, one woman is killed every month by her relatives under the pretext of dishonoring the family by committing adultery. The phenomenon also exists in Syria and the Palestinian territories. The Shiite spiritual leader in Lebanon, Mohammed Hussein Fadlallah, said that honor killings are condemned and prohibited by Islamic law. He added that they have all the aspects of a crime, and those who commit them should not be dealt with leniently. This prohibition was preceded by major public campaigns and activities to raise awareness about honor killings. However, many perpetrators of these crimes benefit from articles in the laws that lessen their punishment. Raghida Zwani, Al-Arabiya.
Tensions run high as Lebanon prepares for elections. But why are these local elections being watched by the world? What do they mean for the government's main opposition, Hezbollah? And will the impact be felt as far as Washington? Answers to these questions and more on Link TV's Mosaic Intelligence Report.
Tensions ran high this week as former Lebanese President Amin Gemayel and General Michel Aoun engaged in another hostile exchange over the upcoming Lebanese by-elections. At stake are 2 seats vacated by the assassination of MPs Pierre Gemayel and Walid Eido, both from the ruling 14th March movement. The battle was the fiercest in the district of Matan, a Christian enclave in the hills north of Beirut.
The people of Matan want to decide today. They want to decide with clarity. Do Matan officials want for the people of Matan to live with complete independence, or do they want the election battles in Matan to be linked to battles or allegiances that begin in Matan and pass through Damascus and Palestine and end in Tehran?
Brother Amin, I know you well. Frankly, not you or everything you are so proud of is worth what is below my belt. There is a type of degradation in political thinking and culture.
With the war in Iraq, a controversial U.S. arms deal with Arab countries and Israel, Condoleezza Rice's recent shuttle diplomacy, not to mention the Iranian nuclear file, you may ask what's so important about these district parliamentary elections in Lebanon. The short answer is that a defeat for Amin Gemayel in Matan will be a defeat for the March 14th coalition and the US-supported Lebanese government. Also, the outcome of the race in Matan will most likely determine who will be Lebanon's next president in September, another litmus test for American influence in the region. But what makes these elections distressing to the Lebanese and a subject for curiosity for neighboring countries is the fact that the battle between Aoun and Gemayel in the Matan district, for a decade a safe seat for the Gemayel clan and the Falange party it founded in the 1930s, represents a battle between the opposition forces led by the Shiite group Hezbollah and supported by Syria and Iran, and the pro-Western and pro-US ruling government. Furthermore, the feuding parties are both Maronite Christians, an issue that has resulted in the interference of the church by its rattled patriarch Nasrallah Boutros Fair, who has called for postponing the elections to avoid a further split among his constituency. Making matters more complicated, Aoun and Gemayel were allies during the latter's presidency when he appointed Aoun in 1988 as his prime minister. According to many Lebanese, this marriage has ended in an ugly divorce. But what's more important is the U.S. interest in these elections. Unconfirmed reports say that the Gemayel has received more than $15 million in American support for his campaign. Meanwhile, in a move perceived as more than just a mere coincidence, President Bush said on Thursday that the United States would freeze the property and assets of anyone trying to undermine Lebanon's democratically elected government, a move intended as a sharp warning to Syria and its ally Hezbollah. During a recent campaign speech, Gemayel described the August 5th by-elections in the Matan region as a battle for survival and Lebanon's existence. In reality, the repercussions from the battle in Beirut will be felt at the Beltway. I'm Jamal Dajani for the Mosaic Intelligence Report. To learn more about this program or to share your thoughts, visit us at linktv.org/mosaic.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news. with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.